The last time I updated you on the Cade Nano, it was just 3 months old and going through an extended ugly stage. But the tank is now a year old and I've finally beaten the uglies, so today I'll bring you up to speed and I'll show you what a 1-year-old reef tank looks like. Now at first I thought the uglies in my tank were cyanobacteria, which is of course really common, but I've since discovered that it's actually something called Ugina. It's very similar in appearance to cyano, except that it's green, and it took me about 6 months to get to the point whereby I'd completely beaten the stuff. As far as I can make out, increasing nitrates above 0 and doing more regular water changes was what sorted the issue. But I'd been doing that for a while before it disappeared, and the fading away coincided with me adding a couple of conches, so it's entirely possible they ate some other stuff too. But whatever fixed it, the tank is finally looking good after months of looking pretty average. As to the livestock, we'll start with the anemones, and I've had these bubble tip anemones for about 9 months now, and while they look absolutely fantastic, they're already getting pretty big and becoming a bit of a pain in the butt. And to be honest with you, if I had my time again, I think I'd either set this tank up with all anemones and no corals, or all corals and no anemones. The bubble tips have already started to wander around the tank, and it might just be a matter of time before they completely take over. And annoyingly, my clownfish haven't shown an interest in them either, and I plan on replacing these 2 snowflake clowns with 2 pink skunk clownfish. Plenty of people have success with bubble tip anemones hosting normal Nemo style clownfish, but pink skunks do that naturally in the wild, and I quite like the idea of having a slightly unusual pair of clowns in the tank anyway. And in the meantime, my porcelain crab is loving life and hangs out in the nems all day long. It's really cool to watch him in there, and if you don't fancy a bubble tip anemone, porcelain crabs will also live happily in rock flower anemones, which are less of a pain in the arse than bubble tips. In terms of corals, I've also added 3 hammer corals to the back glass. I do like the rockscape in this tank, but it's really low, so having a Euphilia garden on the back of the tank adds a bit of interest to the top half of the tank, and they will look absolutely fantastic when they're grown out. I mounted them using these 3D printed 45-degree coral mounts that I sell on my Etsy store, which I'll link in the description below. In terms of water parameters, my most recent test results were nitrate of 6 parts per million and phosphate of 0.04, salinity at 35 parts per thousand or 1.026 specific gravity, calcium at 440, magnesium 1350 and alkalinity of 10. Now with the exception of alkalinity, which I'd rather be a little bit lower, maybe around 8 or 9, those are more or less the perfect parameters for me. And it's been really to achieve that just with a bit of regular testing that's helped me get a better grip on my water chemistry, which is almost certainly what's been the key to making this tank look better. Now while I do roughly 25% water changes once a fortnight, my only filtration on this tank is a Clarity SK3000 filter roller, although I'm about to replace that with a Tunzi 9004 skimmer. The Clarity is very good at what it does, and the roll goes darker than that of my Reef Factory or Red Sea filter rollers, which suggests it controls nutrients better, but it constantly has various alarms that go off, and every time I think I fixed it, I get a different beep a few weeks later. So I decided to switch to a compact skimmer instead. Now that is a bit of a shame because my nutrients were basically perfect just with the Clarity and water changes, but the alarm is too annoying. And in any event, adding a skimmer is no bad thing, and it will mean that I can run ozone on this tank for crystal clear water if I want to do so. In terms of dosing, I've been using Reef's Elements pH Plus for the thick end of a year now. I found you need to dilute it 50-50 with RODI water, or it burns through your dosing tubes, and I had to add a power head to the sump to stir the stuff because before I did that, I found that it just settled out at the bottom of the sump. Now I haven't tested the pH of this tank properly, but given Elements pH Plus is a sodium hydroxide based solution, I suspect my pH is reasonably high, and at some point I'll set up a pH probe to confirm the position. The last thing I've changed since my 3 months update is that I've swapped out my 2 Cade SLW20s for 2 AI Nero 5s. In terms of performance, I haven't noticed a difference, and I'm a big fan of Cade, as long-term followers of the channel will know. But moving to Neros means that when I put the tank into feed mode, the power heads will turn off and the AI blade lights will go into 100% blues, which means I can set the tank to photo mode at the touch of a button. The only missing link is the return pump, which is currently a Cade, and so I have to press a second button to turn that into feed mode. However, I've just bought an AI Axis return pump, so soon the return pump will go into feed mode when I press the Nero feed button too, and I'm disproportionately excited about being able to turn off all flow and set the lights however I want, just with one button. Now in terms of coral plans, I have recently moved this torch coral on before it got too big and started stinging its neighbours, and I've replaced that with some zoas that I think will look absolutely fantastic when they've grown out over this little coral island. But the zoas will probably be my last addition, and I've avoided overstocking this tank in the way that I always do on all my other tanks. Now it's not the most spectacular tank in the world, but I think it looks great just having a small number of colony-sized corals rather than being covered in frags, which is what I normally do. And I really enjoy having this tank in my home office where I get to enjoy it all day long. It's still got a way to go before it's properly grown out, of course, but it should start filling out in the next 6 to 12 months, so make sure you like and subscribe if you want to see how it gets on, and if you've got any questions, let me know in the comment section below, and until next time, happy reefing.